Okay, I'm here with Stewart Jackson, who's MP for Peterborough. How are you today, Stewart?
Fine, thank you.
Right, it's almost 6 months to the day since the big referendum on the EU. We voted out, and you're one of the enthusiasts for that concept. What do you think of the show so far?
I think we've got a lot of work to do. We are at a position of difficulty politically because any sort of negotiation has to have a degree of discretion, because when you're about to embark upon probably the most massive negotiation in British political history, you can't show all your cards, and therefore you've got to get the balance between having a strong, sustainable negotiation strategy with also having a responsibility as an elected democratic government to share what information you've got with lawmakers in Parliament. And that's difficult because really, essentially, we need to trust the Prime Minister that she'll get the best deal for the country.
Well, I'll get onto that in a second, but it wasn't the overriding sentiment behind that vote from let's say the have-nots, based outside the London bubble, that we just want to get out. We don't care about the consequences necessarily. We don't care about the money. We just want to get out from, ideally from June the 24th. It should have been invoked Article 50. Right, we're out. Thank you very much. And if it takes longer at the other end to argue and negotiate, then so be it. But the problem is we're going to have a disconnect between those people who voted and saying, well, why are we waiting, and people in Parliament such as yourself and the judiciary saying, well, hang on, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, and you give the impression of faffing around or delaying.
Well, the fact is we're British, so we do things properly and we do things by the law and by treaty obligation. Although you're quite right, both David Cameron and Jeremy Corbyn said in the wake of the result on the 23rd of June that they would invoke Article 50 immediately. It is, of course, possible for us just to throw everything up and walk away, but what credibility would we have internationally, globally, if we ignored our treaty obligations? So we have to go through the proper process. We will publish a plan in the new year. We will invoke Article 50 before the end of March. I don't agree that it was all about let's just get out and damn the consequences. It was much more positive than that, and one of the reasons even George Osborne said that we won is because we had a much more progressive, forward-looking, positive approach, taking back control of immigration, securing our borders, making laws in our own Parliament, being masters of our own fate, making trade deals across the world with the Commonwealth and other countries. And what was notable from the Remain side is not a positive message about the future of the EU, but it was, you will be punished and you will pay for this if you leave. And that's essentially why Leave won and Remain lost.
But you say that we've got the government in place to do all that, but Theresa May doesn't strike me as somebody who's, all action. Let's get out of the EU. It's very much. Despite the Brexit means Brexit, it's very much a softly approach, which is very easy to confuse with. Well, actually, I'm really going to remain, or I'm just trying to be pragmatic here. I don't want to have a general election just in case it comes up with the wrong result. It's all rather misty and cloudy, and isn't that message going to? Isn't that going to sort of fester over the next few months, unless we have the Article 50 in May, unless we March rather, unless we get things going in a faster way?
Well, most prime ministers would kill for a stratospheric popularity rating that she's got, and an opposition like Labour, and a 16% poll lead. So the idea she's scared of a general election is just not true. But she is, yes, hesitant and a conservative, small c conservative. She wants to do things properly. It doesn't advantage us in the UK to impoverish or have some kind of weakened European Union. We want the European Union to be strong. We want to continue to trade with them and be cordial in our relations. And to that extent, we're going to do things by the book, and it might take a little longer, but I believe it's better to do things thoroughly and properly than to rush into something that we'll regret. And of course there's bluster from the European Commission about what it will cost us to leave and what our responsibilities are and how they're going to punish us and it's going to be all terrible. But we heard all that before. My view is that when business and commerce gets down to brass tacks, they will understand that it's in our interest that we do secure a free trade agreement with no non-tariff barriers, no tariffs, and that Europe and the UK can be friendly and cordial in things like security, the environment, justice and home affairs, those kind of issues where we can swap information and collaborate. And of course, most importantly, is to secure the future of the many thousands of EU residents or citizens that live in the UK and vice versa.
Isn't there a problem? I mean, the latest immigration figures were just the worst, I mean, basically the worst ever. We have the problem, which was the real problem. I mean, one of the real problems of the, which was highlighted by the referendum, was our infrastructure is heaving. It's full. We're full to the brim. This country is full to the brim. We can't cope with the in-tray of people. Of people, and we don't have the resources. We don't have the NHS is also up to the eyeballs as well. So that side, and we don't really have anything to address that. I mean, we're sort of focused on, let's say, getting out of the EU, but there's so much needs to be done on infrastructure, and the odd HS2 here and the Crossrail here is not really going to help the situation.
Well, population is an issue, and immigration was an issue. It wasn't that people are against immigration; they were against uncontrolled immigration. What we need, and what we will have when we've left the European Union, is a system where we get the best and the brightest people from across the whole world. At the moment, we're in the worst of both worlds because we have no control over the people that come from the European Union because of the Free Movement Directive, and yet we're also turning away thousands of people every year who have money in their pockets, they're well educated from across the globe, and that will change.
Yeah, but I'm a 50-year-old normal person. That's how I do a bit of. I'm a writer or a journalist. I don't particularly want hundreds of really skilled journalists coming from around the world competing with me. I send my CV off, I get no answer, and that's something that we all remember. And you're the same age as me. You remember in your lifetime. The competition is horrific. Buying a house for my family is also double. It's double what it would have been 20, 25 years ago. The globalization idea and getting people in, even if you are a conservative Brexiteer, you're facing the competition here. The infrastructure, everything else is.
We can't fight globalization, but we can try and ameliorate its effects. You can't fight the fact that the internet's changed everything, that there's much more information available, that people are less deferential, people are much more mobile, and people are moving around the world. What we were resisting is that we had no control, that we were subsuming our sovereignty and our border control into one entity, which has been a disaster. One only has to see the German immigration policy and the ongoing tragedy of Syria to see it's been a disaster, and the British people want to take back control.
And who's going to be the person to do that? Because I don't see anybody really in the administration who's going to stand up and it's a poison chalice to go for.
To address your point specifically, we need these talented people to generate tax revenue, to create businesses, to employ people, because the number of people working compared to the number of people not working, retired, is going to shrink in the next 30, 40, 50 years because of demographic change. The number of over 85s is going to double in the next 25 years. So we're going to need new people to create that wealth, to make sure that people like you and I, relatively young people at the moment, have an income in our retirement. But we want the best people, and I don't think it's unreasonable, and it's not unreasonable in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the United States, to say we will choose as a sovereign, independent, self-governing nation who comes to our country and who leaves it.
Right, finally, you mentioned the Labour Party. Presumably we have to, for the sense of balance, mention these people. In a sort of effective democracy, you need to have, the government and the opposition. Have we actually got that at the moment? Because it seems to me that it's Theresa May really balancing the two sides of the Tory party, rather than actually anything coming from the Labour side to direct or help or advise, which used to happen in the good old days, let's say.
Well, you're absolutely right. Our system is predicated on having a functional, viable opposition that is ready within weeks, effectively, to become the government, and we're not in that position now because the Labour Party is frankly a basket case.
But you've got Corbyn, who seems to be a mixture between Neil Kinnock and Michael Foot. I mean, he's
much worse than Michael Foot. The fact is that the Labour Party now are facing an existential crisis, and I believe that the Labour Party that even existed in 2015 is now dead. It's been replaced by a people's social movement of very extreme left-wing people who are anti-British, who favour terrorist groups. These are the people at the top of the Labour Party across the world, for high taxes, more regulation. These are the people who are completely outside the mainstream of British political life. And unless someone comes along and displaces Corbyn and starts to address the concerns of Middle England about things like immigration, but also tax, business, commerce, then the Labour Party is in a very, very poor position. And I can't see how it's going to go forward unless you have some charismatic leader like Blair. Not that you should bring Blair back, but someone like him.
He's trying to come back.
The Labour Party is in a mess, and therefore you're quite right that it beholdens the Conservative Party to be responsible and moderate and mainstream as the government.
Stewart Jackson, thank you very much.
Thank you.